Good day everyone, my name is Amethyst and today I'm going to discuss about photosynthesis, highlighting its two stages, the light-dependent reactions and the light-independent reactions, also called the Calvin cycle. First of all, what is photosynthesis in simple terms? The word photosynthesis is derived from the Greek words phos and synthesis. Phos means light and synthesis means combining together. Therefore, this means combining together with the help of light. Photosynthesis also applies to other organisms besides green plants. This includes several prokaryotes such as cyanobacteria, purple bacteria, and green sulfur bacteria. These organisms exhibit photosynthesis just like green plants. The glucose produced during photosynthesis is then used to fuel various cellular activities. The byproduct of this physiochemical process is oxygen. As you can see, plants in general are major producers, making them essential in food webs, while us humans, including animals, are called consumers because we consume plants. We depend on them. Many of our medications and foods come from plants. So, here is the balanced overall equation for photosynthesis. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water with the help of light from the sun will help produce the main product, glucose, and a byproduct, oxygen. The main product of photosynthesis is glucose, and oxygen is only the byproduct or waste product because oxygen is released when making glucose. As you will notice, it has some similarities to aerobic cellular respiration. Recall that cellular respiration is used to make ATP, which is an energy currency, and it's done by plants as well as animals and a lot of other organisms too. You can see how these reactants or inputs of photosynthesis are included in the products or outputs in cellular respiration. And the products outputs of photosynthesis are included in the reactants or inputs of cellular respiration. While this doesn't mean that they're simply reverse, it's interesting to see what they have in common. So, while both plants and animals need glucose for cellular respiration, plants don't have to be in search of glucose because they make it. Plants have adaptations to carry out photosynthesis in a variety of environments, while animals consume it. One thing plants have to do is to capture light. Plants can use light-capturing molecules called pigments. So, a pigment that plants commonly use to capture light is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll does a great job at absorbing red and blue light, but not so much green light. Chlorophyll reflects green light, resulting in many plants appearing green to our eyes. There are pigments besides chlorophyll that work with different wavelengths of light, and this can explain why green is not the only color you see in plants. Chlorophyll is a pigment that can be found in the chloroplasts of plant cells. There are two major reactions that occur in the chloroplast that together make up photosynthesis. They are the light-dependent reactions and the light-independent reactions. The light-independent reactions can also be called the Calvin cycle. This is the chloroplast. Chloroplast is an organelle where photosynthesis can happen. It can be found only in plant cell. Chloroplast has different parts but we mainly focus on stroma and thylakoid. So this is the thylakoid, and this is where light-dependent reaction happens. It appears like stacked coins. On the other hand, this is the stroma, a space inside the chloroplast. It is where light-independent reaction happens, also known as the Calvin cycle. This one. So, why is it called light-dependent reaction? The first stage of photosynthesis is called the light-dependent reaction because it relies on light energy to drive the chemical reactions. During this reaction, the thylakoid will absorb the light from the sun to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And during this entire process, oxygen is released into the atmosphere and hydrogen is used to make ATP and NADPH, which will then be used for the next reaction, which is the light-independent reaction or the Calvin cycle. In phase 1, light reaction, light-dependent happens inside the thylakoid. And inside the thylakoid, there is thylakoid membrane. This is a thylakoid membrane. The space inside the thylakoid is called lumen. The thylakoid membrane has a so-called photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. What happens is that the thylakoid membrane will absorb the energy from the sun in photosystem 2 to energize the electron. And when the electron is energized, it will travel to photosystem 1 with the help of electron transport chain. And as the electron travels, it splits the water. Remember that water's chemical formula is H2O, which is the hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen is released to the atmosphere. This is where the oxygen that the plant releases into the atmosphere and that we inhale comes from. Hydrogen, on the other hand, accumulates in the lumen. So, let's go back to the traveling electron. When the electron arrives in photosystem 1, it no longer has energy because it was already used to split the water. So, thylakoid will take light energy again to re-energize the electron. Then, in photosystem 1, the electron is used to react with NADP to make NADPH. Then the hydrogens accumulated in the lumen will be used by ATP synthase to convert ADP to ATP. Remember that ATP is the energy currency of the cell. This means that it is the energy that the cell uses to work properly. NADPH and ATP will be used by a light-independent reaction to produce glucose. So, here is the simple diagram showing the full process of photosynthesis. This is the light-dependent reaction. At this stage, light energy from the sun and water is needed. What is happening is that the light energy will split the water with the chemical formula H2O, release the oxygen into the atmosphere that we inhale, and the remaining hydrogen will be used to make ATP and NADPH, which will be used in the next stage, light-independent reaction or Calvin cycle. So, what exactly happens in the Calvin cycle or light-independent reaction? Light-independent because light energy is not needed in this stage. What is needed is carbon dioxide, ATP, and NADPH from the light-dependent reaction to make glucose, which is the main product of photosynthesis. The Calvin cycle or light-independent stage has three parts or three phases, and they are the carbon dioxide fixation, carbon dioxide reduction, and regeneration of RUBP. So, how exactly is glucose made in the light-independent reaction? The first phase of the light-independent reaction or Calvin cycle is carbon dioxide fixation. Using carbon dioxide and RUBP, which is a 5-carbon molecule, will make phosphoglycerate or 3PG with the help of Rubisco enzyme. In this phase, there is a product of 2 3-carbon phosphoglycerate. Phase 2. This is carbon dioxide reduction. What happens is that phosphoglycerate is converted to carbohydrates or glucose or G3P with the help of NADPH and ATP from the light-dependent reaction. And because of this process, NADPH will become NADP plus and ATP will become ADP again, and then they will return to the thylakoid to be used again by a light-dependent reaction. Stage 3. RUBP regeneration. And since photosynthesis is a cycle process, RUBP must be made again. G3P from phase 2 will be used to redo RUBP. G3P has 3 carbons, one of which will be left to become the building block of glucose. Then the rest will be used to become RUBP with the help of ATP. And the RUBP will be used again to start another cycle. As a summary of light-independent stage or Calvin cycle, carbon dioxide will react with RUBP with the help of Rubisco enzyme to produce 2 phosphoglycerates. Then, phosphoglycerate will be taken to phase 2 to become carbohydrates or G3P using NADPH and ATP from the light-dependent reaction. After phase 2, G3P will go to phase 3. 1 molecule of G3P will be left to become a building block of glucose, and then the rest of the G3P will be used to make RUBP with the help of ATP. And the cycle repeats. Remember that it takes 6 turns of the Calvin cycle to make 1 molecule of glucose.